order this briefing of the Committee on Finance by the NEDA, the National Economic and Development Authority, and its attached agencies. We'd like to greet our good Secretary R.C. Balisacan and his team. Gandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Thank you. Happy Monday. I'll ask our ComSec Dave to acknowledge our guests.
The committee would like to acknowledge the following resource persons present. For the National Economic and Development Authority, we have Secretary Arsenio M. Balisacan. He is joined by Undersecretary Melbourne Zero Pana, Head Executive Assistant Danilo Lorenzo Atanasio. For the Policy and Planning Group, we have Undersecretary Rosemary Edilion, Assistant Secretary Sara Lynn S. Daway Ducanes, and Assistant Secretary Reynaldo Cancio. For the Investment Programming Group, we have Undersecretary Joseph Capuno and Jonathan L. Uy. For the Regional Development Group, we have Undersecretary Carlos Bernardo Abad Santos and Assistant Secretary Greg Pineda. For the Corporate Affairs Group, we have Assistant Secretary Florante Igtiben. For the Social Development Staff, we have Director Gerly Casimiro Igtiben. For the Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Environment staff, we have Director Nieva Natural. For the Innovation staff, we have Director Dayan Maharjan. For the Governance staff, we have Director Reverie Pure Sapain. For the Infrastructure staff, we have Director Kathleen Mangune. For the Monitoring and Evaluation staff, we have Aldwin Urbina, Director. For the Public Investment staff, for the Development Information staff, we have Director Fatima Cabanya. Center, we have Director Catalina Caraan. For the Commission on Population and Development, we have Executive Director Lisa Grace S. Bersales. For the Tariff Commission, we have its Chairperson Marilu Mendoza and Director Jerry Gebela. For the Philippine Statistical Research and Training Institute, we have Executive Director Josefina Almeda. For the Philippine National Volunteer Service Coordinating Agency, we have Executive Director Donald James Gawe. For the Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council, or LEDAC, we have Supervising Economic Development Specialists Celeste Gomez and Jeneline Valencia. For the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, we have its president, Aniceto C. Orbeta Jr., together with Administrative and Finance Manager Jamie Lynn Hamias Garcia. For our DBM representatives, we have Chief Budget and Management Specialist Loremi Pereda and Evita Dakiwag. Also, Ms. Angel Ferrer, Supervising Budget and Management Specialist. For the Commission on Audit, we have, for the National Economic and Development Authority, we have Audit Team Leader Elenita Manawis and Supervising Auditor Hehersib Visayas. For the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, we have Audit Team Leader Leo Camacho and Supervising Auditor Suzette G. Pornales. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, ComSec. Again, good morning, Your Honors. We'll turn it over to Sec RC or any member of his team who wishes to make any presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Senator Sani Angara, the NEDA family, and fellow public servants, good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to present the proposed budget of NEDA and its attached agencies, as well as the LEDAC for fiscal year 2024. Shown on the screen is the order of our presentation. Allow me to begin, Your Honor, with NEDA's vision and mission. And NEDA, as the government's premier socioeconomic planning and policy oversight body, envisions the country where public and private sectors perform their respective roles efficiently, such that people have equal access to opportunities, resulting in inclusive development and zero poverty, our mission is to formulate continuing, coordinated, and fully integrated socioeconomic policies, plans, and programs. Let me now present to you NEDA's key accomplishments for fiscal year 2022 and for the first semester of fiscal year 2023. NEDA's major accomplishments include the crafting of the 8-point socioeconomic agenda of the administration, aimed to reinvigorate job creation and accelerate poverty reduction by steering the economy on a high growth path. NEDA then led the formulation of the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028, which serves as the country's medium-term development blueprint, as well as the corresponding regional development plans of 15 regions. The PDP and RDPs lay out the objectives, strategies, and priority programs carefully designed to foster deep economic and social transformation. NEDA advocated for the passage of 3 economic liberalization bills, the amendments of the Public Service Act, the Foreign Investment Act, and the Retail Trade Liberalization Act. NEDA also led the formulation, the implementing rules and regulations of these bills, the amended PSA, amended FIA, and the Philippine Digital Workforce Competitiveness Act. NEDA, as the Secretariat of the National Innovation Council, or NIC, formulated the National Innovation Agenda and Strategy Development 2023 to 2032, which lays down the overall innovation framework and priority areas for the country in the next 10 years. Through Executive Order number 28, the Interagency Committee on Inflation and Market Outlook, proposed by NEDA, was created under the Economic Development Group. It is tasked to monitor the main drivers of rising prices of basic goods and to ramp up the government's efforts to ease inflation. NEDA conducted assessments of policies and issues on the supply of rice, sugar, and other agricultural commodities, and provided recommendations to combat elevated prices of basic food commodities. NEDA also led the formulation of 10 disaster rehabilitation and recovery programs for areas affected by the magnitude 7 northwestern Luzon earthquake and tropical storms Paeng and Odette. With regards to national investment programming, NEDA has formulated the Public Investment Program 2023 to 2028. Several of the PIP's regional counterparts, or the Regional Development Investment Programs, or RDIPs, the 3-year Rolling Infrastructure Program, and the list of infrastructure flagship projects, or IFPs, under the Build Better More program. The list currently reflects 197 IFPs worth 8.7 trillion pesos as of July 2023. NEDA has also launched the IFP's dashboard, which is accessible through the NEDA website. It's a publicly available interactive tool that provides an overview of the 197 IFPs, highlighting their status, cost requirements, distribution by sector, mode of financing, and regional location. In addition, NEDA provided assistance through project appraisal. In the first semester of 2023, the ICC and NEDA board approved a total of 16 projects and requests for restructuring with an estimated cost of 468.2 billion pesos, of which 12 are infrastructure projects, 4 are non-infrastructure projects. Of the 12 infrastructure projects, 9 are financed through ODA, 2 through PPP, and 1 locally funded. The 4 non-infrastructure projects are all financed through ODA. NEDA, together with DOEF, spearheaded efforts to amend the Build, Operate, Transfer, or BOT law, as well as the IRR, as its IRR, to create a more enabling regulatory environment for public-private partnerships. We thank the Senate for its support of this measure. Moreover, NEDA released the updated Investment Coordination Committee or ICC guidelines on processing PPP proposals for NEDA board or ICC evaluation and approval. The NEDA procedures aim to significantly reduce processing time for the evaluation and approval of NEDA board ICC projects. Good morning, Senator.
We just want to acknowledge Committee Vice Chair, Senator Win Gatchalian. Morning, sir.
Thank you, sir. NEDA also submitted the 2022 Official Development Assistance ODA Portfolio Review to Congress. The active ODA portfolio of the Philippines in 2022 amounted to 32.4 billion US dollars, which is a marginal 0.5% increase from 32.2 billion US dollars in 2021. Let me now proceed, Your Honor, to our attached agencies, starting with the Philippine Statistics Authority. PSA's major accomplishments include the continued implementation of the Philippine Identification System, or the PhilSys ID. As of September 8, 2023, the PSA registered 80.6 million Filipinos in PhilSys and delivered 39 million physical IDs and 40.8 million e-Phil IDs. The PSA released, as scheduled, the results of regular statistical surveys and various socioeconomic indicators, including inflation, labor force and employment, GDP, and trade. It also released the 2021 full-year official poverty statistics in August 2022. Said statistics include national, regional, provincial, and highly urbanized city-level poverty estimates, which were generated based on the results of the 2021 Family Income and Expenditure Survey. In addition, the PSA rolled out the 2022 Community-Based Monitoring System, or the CBMS. The CBMS will be used by LGUs for their evidence-based planning, implementation, assessment, and intervention activities, and by the DSWD as data source for targeting households that will be enrolled in social protection programs such as the 4Ps. The PSA also conducted preparatory
I'd like to
activities.
acknowledge also with your permission, one of the Committee Vice Chair, Senator Bato de la Rosa. Morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. The PSA also conducted preparatory activities for the conduct of the 2022 Census of Agriculture and Fisheries. Next is the Commission on Population and Development, or CPD. It provided technical assistance to LGUs and other relevant national, regional institutions to implement functional population and development strategies and programs to reduce the unmet need for modern family planning by at least 50% and reduce adolescent pregnancy by 10%. Next is the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, or PIDS. In 2022, the PIDS completed 64 studies focusing on COVID-19 pandemic recovery, productivity enhancement, health, education, social protection, food security, digital economy, and digital economy, and advocated for these studies through various channels. In the first semester of 2023, PIDS has completed 4 research studies on energy security, the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, metropolitan governance, and infrastructure development. PIDS has also released 7 policy notes for the Second Congressional Commission on Education, or EDCOM. Next is the Tariff Commission. The Commission spearheaded the Philippine implementation of the 2022 version of the ASEAN Harmonized Tariff Nomenclature to facilitate trade within ASEAN by helping reduce disputes and differences in the classification of products. The Tariff Commission also submitted to NEDA 6 reports on tariff modification with corresponding draft implementing executive orders and rice, meat of swine, coal, corn, electric vehicles, deboned meat of chicken and turkey, offal, and natural gypsum. 4 executive orders were issued by the President in 2022 and 2023 based on the Tariff Commission reports, namely EO17, EO10, EO12, and EO13. As for the Public-Private Partnership Center, it added 10 new projects to the pipeline to the PPP pipeline and adopted issuances and policy documents, which include the BOT Law IRR amendments, the 2022 Guidelines and Procedures and Processing PPP proposals for NEDA Board and ICC evaluation and approval, and the guidelines and the negotiation process for unsolicited proposals under the revised BOT Law or IRR, BOT Law IRR. Next is the Philippine Statistical Research and Training Institute, or the PSRTI. It conducted 65 various training courses attended by nearly 4,000 participants and 12 research studies, majority of which were about the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. Meanwhile, the Philippine National Volunteer Coordinating Agency, or the PNSVA, conducted capacity building activities and setting up a volunteer program and established partnerships with national government agencies, LGUs, higher education institutions, and civil service organizations to support or collaborate in the implementation of the National Volunteer Service Program. It also facilitated the clearance and deployment of 171 international volunteers in the country and 17 Filipino volunteers overseas, and referred 113 individuals to local organizations that engage volunteers in the sector of environment, agriculture, and food safety, and security, communication, education, and social impact. Lastly, Mr. Chair, is the Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council, or the LEDAC. Its major accomplishments is the approval and adoption of the LEDAC Common Legislative Agenda, or CLA, for the 19th Congress, which consists of 42 priority legislative measures as of the first semester of this year. Of the 42 bills, 6 have been signed into law. These are the SIM Card Registration Act, postponement of the barangay and SK elections, strengthening professionalism in the AFP, New Agrarian Emancipation Act, the Maharlika Investment Fund, and regional specialty hospitals. Let me now proceed to NEDA's financial performance for fiscal year 2022 and first semester of fiscal year 2023. As of December 31, 2022, NEDA and its attached agencies were able to obligate 13.9 billion pesos, or 80.65% of its total allotment of 17.24 billion pesos. On the other hand, of the obligated amount, a total amount of 10.54 billion pesos, or 75.75%, was disbursed. The bulk of the unobligated budget in 2022 is for the conduct of the 2022 Census of Agriculture and Fisheries, wherein the enumeration period was rescheduled to September this year. As of June 30, 2023, NEDA and its attached agencies were able to obligate 37.68% of the 2023 budget. Of the obligated amount, 79.5% has been disbursed. The reason for the overall low obligation rate is because some big-ticket programs and projects are scheduled to be implemented in the second semester of 2023, such as the Census of Agriculture and Fisheries and the Family Income and Expenditure Survey. Mr. Chair, let me now present to you the proposed budget for NEDA and its attached agencies and the LEDAC. Our total budget proposal for fiscal year 2024 is 12.21 billion pesos. This slide The slide shown on the screen shows the breakdown of our proposed 2024 budget by allotment class. The maintenance and other operating expenses has the biggest chunk, amounting to 8.07 billion pesos, or 2/3 of the total proposed budget. The personal services amounts to 3.5 billion pesos, or 29% of the total proposed budget, while the remaining 0.64 billion pesos, or 5%, is for capital outlay. The next slide shows the breakdown of our proposed budget by appropriation source. 97.69%, or 11.93 billion pesos, is appropriated to the agency's specific budget. 2.29%, or 279.92 million pesos, is appropriated under the automatic appropriations for the payment of retirement and life insurance premium, while the remaining 0.02%, or 2.5 million pesos, is appropriated to the special accounts in the general fund for the tariff commission's remedies fund. The slide on the screen shows the breakdown of our proposed budget by agency. Historically, PSA gets the lion's share of the budget of the NEDA family. For fiscal year 2024, PSA's proposed budget is 8.94 billion pesos, or 73.21% of our total budget. NEDA OSEC's budget amounts to 2.06 billion pesos, or 16.85%. The remaining 1.21 billion pesos, or 9.94%, is shared by the rest of our 6 attached agencies. Shown next on the screen is the comparison of NEDA's budget based on the 2023 GAA and the 2024 NEP. The decrease in PSA's and NEDA's budget for next year is due to the non-recurring budget big ticket items included in this year's budget, such as the Census of Fisheries and Agriculture, which is conducted only every 10 years, and the construction of the PSA building and the renovation of the NEDA building. As for the LEDAC, its proposed budget for fiscal year 2024 amounts to 3.46 million pesos, of which 2.95 million pesos goes to PS, while 509,000 pesos goes to MOE. Its budget is proposed to be transferred to the NEDA OSEC in view of the transfer of the LEDAC Secretariat personnel to NEDA as approved by DBM. As the last part of our presentation, Mr. Chair, allow me to highlight some of the features of our proposed budget. For 2024, the PSA aims for the cumulative registration of 101 million Filipinos in the PhilSys with a funding of 1.6 billion pesos. Meanwhile, 1.3 billion pesos is allocated for the preparation of the 2025 Census of Population and Housing. Another important undertaking of the PSA in 2024 is the conduct of the Community-Based Monitoring System, or CBMS, in all cities and municipalities with a budget of 788 million pesos. The data that will be collected from the 2024 CBMS will be used not only for local level planning, but more importantly, for the national targeting of households that will be given social protection as a replacement to the listahanan of the DSWD. PIDS Socioeconomic Policy Research Program has a total allocation of 150.97 million pesos. It is intended to be used for conducting studies, which include research for EDCOM2 and the impact evaluation of DSWD's 4Ps program. Under the PPP Management Program, the PPP Center extends technical assistance to national and local implementing agencies in the preparation, packaging, structuring, approval, and bidding of their projects with the private sector participation. After successful award of projects, PPP Center will monitor and evaluate implementation of these projects. Lastly, the Innovation Fund includes the innovation grants for programs, projects, and activities that work on the promotion and implementation of all potential types and sources of innovation. The amount also includes the provision of secretariat services to the National Innovation Council. With these programs, the NEDA and its attached agencies will be able to effectively and faithfully carry out our mandates as we align our efforts with the Marcos administration's broader socio-economic agenda and the strategies identified in the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028. This ends our presentation, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sec RC. We'll turn it over to Senwin. He has 10 minutes. And we're very grateful for the assistance. I'm sure Senwin chairs the EDCOM. So we're very appreciative of the assistance. As well as we noticed the LEDAC has been very active. So congratulations to the NEDA and Sec RC. Vice Chairman Senwin, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to again reiterate that thanks to PIDS being the research arm of the EDCOM, and we part of our mandate is to generate recommendations that are research-based, well-studied, and accompanied by empirical evidence. And PIDS is the organization that is helping us with that. I think it's Dr. Urbeta is the one regularly attending our hearings, even though he's always being pressured to generate a lot of reports on time. But I thank Dr. Urbeta for being present all the time during our hearing. My question.
He's also subjected to some intense grilling occasionally, Mr. Chairman.
I think it's part of the job, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, my question to NEDA and also to PIDS is, and also to PSA, is connected to some of the research materials that we use, specifically phlegms. I understand that Dr. Mapa will probably can weigh in this. I understand that phlegms is every 4 or 5 years, every 5 years, no? But I also understand that it's not as regular when it's being conducted. Is there any way that we can shorten the time frame that we conduct phlegms? Because phlegms is not only used by EDCOM, it's also used by the Literacy Council, monitoring the literacy rates in our country. It's also being used by LGUs to gauge whether how deep is their problem or what type of literacy programs that they will introduce in their own locality. So it's a very important tool. However, 5 years is a very long time and a very, I think the gap is quite unrealistic, considering that when you implement a program, you want to see whether that program is effective or not. No? So my question is, what's the possibility of shortening the time frame or the gap when we conduct the phlegms? And is there any budgetary requirement when we do that? When we do so? So anyone from NEDA can answer.
We'll definitely take that into that suggestion, Mr. Chair, when the PSA board will meet. But National Statistician Dennis Mapa is here. Maybe could come pitch in.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We last year we requested for a budget for PLEMS because we understand coming from COVID pandemic, we know that there are changes in the literacy, functional literacy, and the like. And unfortunately, it was not provided. But this year, next year that is, we will conduct the PLEMS. It's part of our budget proposal. And on the suggestion of Senator Win, as mentioned by Secretary RC, we will discuss this in the PSA board. I think the conduct of the PLEMs can be shortened. We did this in the FIES. Before the FIES is being done every 3 years, and thus our poverty report, official poverty report, is only every 3 years. And we presented and proposed to the PSA board that it should be done every 2 years. And we are now doing it every 2 years. So we can also do the same for PLEMs. Maybe a 3-year cycle would be a reasonable period, Senator.
Dr. Mapa, how much is one cycle? For
About
claims?
60 million.
60 million
60 million.
pesos. And that is a survey, no?
Yeah,
It's not,
that's a survey.
It's not a census, no? It's
Yeah.
a survey. And is there a possibility to make it shorter, let's say 2 years or 3 years? Because it's a very useful tool, and in fact, it's the only tool that discusses literacy, no, in our country. Is there also a way to make it more granular? Let's say at a city level, or I understand right now it's a regional level, no? But can we make it at least city level? Is that possible?
Yeah, that's always possible, Mr. Senator, Mr. Chair. The FIES, as we are doing it for official poverty, is actually down to the highly urbanized cities. So we have the national, regional, provincial, and highly urbanized city. We can actually do the same for PLEMs. The implication is that, of course, the budgetary requirement would expand a bit. Most probably because we're doing it at the regional level. So the number of replicates, the number of sample that we're getting is about 4. If we're doing it at the highly urbanized cities, it will expand to 16. So that's about 4 times. But that is feasible given the resources needed.
Do you know how much will we need to bring it down to a city level?
Back the envelope computation is that from 60 million, it will be about 240 million, which is the same as the budget for the Family Income and Expenditure Survey.
All right. Thank you. Dr. Mapa, please submit to us some form of position paper on that, and maybe our chairman can consider increasing the budget so that will make it more regular and more granular.
With your permission, Vice Chair, just
Yeah.
on a related intervention, what is the sampling methodology for the FLEMs?
This
Kasi
is
yung, like, for example, just yung Pulse Asia, they rotate, di ba? They choose some cities, then they go to another city. Is that, ganun din ba sa FLEMs?
sa
Nagbabago siya?
the household surveys, lahat ng household surveys po ng PSA ay meron tayong tinatawag na master sample. Ito ay galing sa census na kinolekta natin ng 2020. So this is probability sampling. Mayroon po tayong pinipili na mga enumeration areas, no? May mga specific characteristics, and from there we get a sample. So we have a bigger sample simply because our domain is not just national, but regional, and as I mentioned, provincial and highly urbanized cities, as in the case of the Family Income and Expenditure Survey, which we will propose also for the future conduct of the
And so as not to prolong the proceedings, can you just give us a breakdown of your sampling methodology for the past FLEM?
Yes.
When was it commenced?
The last one,
When did you
Twenty-
when did you start doing the FLEMs?
this is in the 80s.
Okay,
Sir.
so
We can-
if you know, please, as far back as you can go, give us the sampling methodology.
We will do,
Which areas were sampled? Thank you.
we will do, Mr.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, on a separate note, and this has been quite a discussion here in the Senate, and this is regarding fraudulent SIM cards, as well as fraudulent SIM cards that are being used in scamming, particularly financial scamming. But now it has expanded to other things. So, for example, love scam or crypto scam or other types of scamming. But the more popular here is really revolves around financial scamming, meaning offering loans or offering financial products. And I remember we conducted 2 hearings, one by Senator Poe in the Public Services Committee, and the other one was by Senator Villar on the Banks Committee. And when we were doing all of the tracing, it points to fraudulent SIM cards, no? And one of the reasons why uh, fraudulent SIM cards or fraudulent registered SIM cards is rampant is because of the identification that is being used. In in the SIM card registration law, there are 17 different identification cards that we can use in order to register your SIM cards. But there's also a catch-all provision there that government can expand that, no, depending on the situation. But some of the identification cards are not as strict. No, I'll give you a very specific example: senior citizens card, no, PWD card. I understand that it has also expanded. The identifications were also expanded to accept barangay clearance. But these are really, it's really easy to get PWD cards and senior citizens card, and the validation and the cleaning process of these cards are not regular. Not all LGUs clean up their database when it comes to PW cards and senior citizens card. There are many, many cases the senior citizen has already passed away, but the card is still active. No? So my point of the matter there is these cards are being used to get SIM cards or register SIM cards fraudulently, and that leads to a lot of the scamming that is happening. So the most logical is to use national ID. No? I mean that national ID, the original intention of the national ID is to have one foolproof universal ID that everyone can use. It's high tech, it's biometric, it's based on biometrics, and no one can replicate that. No, but however, I understand that there are problems in terms of reproducing or giving or producing the cards, shipping the cards, and also giving the national ID to our constituents. So I just want to get Secretary RC gave us some overview of that, but I want to get an update on where we are when it comes to national ID and what seems to be the problem not reaching 100% of our constituents.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our national statistician who's on top of the project is here, Mr. Chair.
Before he answers, ano na lang, ano yung finish line dyan? Tsaka what is the finish line? Is it so many millions of physical ID or you consider the finish line as non-physical ID? At tsaka when will it be attained?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The finish line is to register everyone, all Filipinos, ano, and to provide them with the ID. The ID could be in the form of a physical card, which is being printed by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or it could be actually in the form of the e-fil ID or the digital ID that is being issued by the DICT. So any form of identity. Although, Mr. Chair, yung Filipinos kasi may preference talaga doon sa physical card. And right now, talagang doon ang kulang. Just to update you on the numbers, right now, it's good that it was mentioned by Senator Win Gatchalian. We have already registered 81 million Filipinos in the national ID system. So this is actually 81% of our population 5 years and above. We have covered already about 85% of the 15 and above, and about 65% of the 5 to 14. So halos marami na talaga. And we have already a clean database kasi chine-check po namin ito sa biometric and demographic. Ang clean database is already about 78.5 million, which the telcos can actually use using the demographic plus the biometric information. What is important kasi dito, Mr. Chair, is really the not just the demographic information, but the biometric information. And we are working as ordered by the President with the DICT and the telco, when they register SIM card registrants, can actually utilize already the national ID system. Thank you.
But Dr. Mapa, Dr. Mapa, you said 81 million registered, but how many cards have been given to our constituents? And are the physical cards the only way of delivering national ID? I heard earlier the chairman mentioned digital cards. I personally prefer digital cards. No? But what are the modalities that you have used in order to fulfill all the national ID requirements of our registered constituents?
Okay. There are three modes for the identification. The first one is the physical card. This is being printed at the printing facilities of Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. We have already delivered to the registrants 39.7 million of these physical cards. And to augment, because as I mentioned, we have about 80.9 million registrants. So kalahati pa lang yung may physical card. So we augmented it with what we call the e-fill ID. So these are the national ID printed on paper, but it has the same information as the physical card. It has a QR code, and your demographic and biometrics are stored actually in the system. And DICT just issued through the eGov app. As of last September 15, they reported to the PhilSys Council that they have issued 300,000 digital national ID. So all of these modes, you can use it in your transactions, no? Financial transaction, opening of bank accounts, or SIM registration. What is important again dito is not just the ID to show it, but really a mechanism that the registrants can be verified or authenticated using the biometric information, fingerprint or the photograph.
Let me add.
Again, with your permission, gentlemen, Senwin, you said 81 million, 80%. Just a sample of this room. Can you raise your hand? Who has an ID here in this room? Bakit kami wala pa? Kami lang yung... No, who has an ID? Sino yung meron? Meron ka na? Oo. So I'm just wondering, who is the onus upon? Is it the onus upon the individual or upon NEDA to get the ID? Paano nila malalaman? How will the common Filipino know minsan na may ID na siya? Na pwede niyang i-download sa phone niya, ganon. Iko-contact niyo ba?
Dinideliver po namin, dinideliver namin house to house ito.
Pero ilan lang yun, di ba? Ilan lang yung physical IDs,
This is
Dr. Mapa?
39.7 million physical card plus the 41.2.
How many of the 39 have been delivered? Oh.
All of this.
Delivered
in-
na
in
lahat
hand-
yun.
in the
Okay.
hands of the
So yung 42 is virtual. Ano ba tawag doon? Non-physical?
If ID po yung on paper.
Yeah. yeah.
Yun po yung...
Oo.
Ang
What is it called? What is the correct term?
E-fill ID.
E-fill ID.
Electronic.
Okay. Like kami, I don't have mine. How do I get mine? Oh.
We will Senator,
Yeah.
we will have it delivered.
Kasi 2 years ago, I asked my staff 2 years ago na kinuha daw yung biometrics nila. Pero up to now, they don't know how to do the yung how to download it. But I see it on the, everything abroad is already on your phone. So I think we have to move towards that regime already.
The DICT, as mentioned kanina, Mr. Chair, the DICT upon the instruction of the President is actually working with the PSA via their eGov app. And 2 weeks ago, they mentioned that already 300,000 of the eGov app users downloaded their national ID through the phone.
Again, with apologies to with the indulgence of my colleagues, are we investing in cybersecurity? Kasi given the higher risk at saka yung higher stakes in the identity, nakasalalay po yan sa ID. Nag-invest ba tayo sa cybersecurity? I understand there's some government agencies which are, if not compromised, being compromised as we speak. No?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have a security operations center that monitors yung mga potential attacks. In fact, last week I advised them to be mindful because of that.
Do you have your own or you're dependent on
we have-
DICT?
We
May
have
sarili
our
kayong
own at the offices of the PSA po.
yung tawag na information nyo, where is, I mean, if you tell me if I'm asking something that's confidential or should not be asked in public, I will ask it of you in private. Pero kasi sa DICT is meant to be the repository of information, public information. In your case, ganun ba?
We have a data center.
You have your own data center.
And we
Okay.
have
I will not
primarily-
ask you the details in public because that may compromise things. Sec RC, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just about to add, Mr. Chair, that there is already an official agreement with no less than by instruction of the President to have the ICT spearhead the completion of the digital ID, and that they could complete that quickly as they committed. And the
What is the procedure
Yes.
for that? Can they just go online and they can download their digital ID? Ganun lang kasimple yun?
Yeah.
Okay.
And for the completion of the physical ID, that is still the responsibility of PSA.
Yeah,
Tob, go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chair, with the indulgence of Senator, with the permission of Senator Win, yung digital ID, sir, siguro kung hirap tayong mag-produce nung hard copy, dahil sabi nyo, 31% pa lang yung na-deliveran ninyo dahil yung printing problems or whatever. Siguro, pwede nating i-stop yun. Then we'll go digital. Makakuha pa tayo, makasave pa yung pera ang gobyerno kung i-stop natin yun. Lahat naman ng Pilipino, merong cellphone. So, pwede na nilang makita yung cellphone nila, digital. Ito yung aking national ID. For all my transactions, digital na tayo. Makasave ba tayo ng pera kung hindi natin i-print yung remaining ilang percent yun? Siguro, that would be a wise move. I don't know. As far as you're concerned, kung anong take nyo dyan. Pero sa akin, in order to save, baka mas maganda, digital na lang tayo. At sana gamitin na ito talaga sa lahat ng transaction, lalong-lalo na yung sa SIM card registration. Very important talaga ito. Dapat ito talagang primary instrument na gagamitin natin for SIM card. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yun lang
Salamat.
may
Good point by Vice Chair Bato. Again, thank you, Sen Win, for allowing the intervention.
Just to continue what Senator Bato mentioned, he's right because we got some news reports that PSA disallowed or did not accept 1.1 million cards because of errors in printing. Is that we saw this in a news report. This is from a supplier called All Cards. And I think they were rejected by PhilSys because of errors and I think quality issues. No, I think number one is that information accurate, and then number two, going by what Senator Bato mentioned, the physical cards is prone to quality issues. So digital cards you can rectify it obviously digitally, no, and right now all phones, like for example in iPhone they have yung Apple Wallet, and all the credit cards now they have a digital version of that credit card, and you just save it there, and then you go anywhere and you show it to everyone. No? So it saves a lot of time. It saves logistics issues kasi the physical cards you have to also deliver. Pag wala doon, babalik nila. No, minsan nakuha ng iba tapos nawala. No? Things like that. No? So number one is this 1.1 million cards that were rejected accurate, and then number two, the digital cards. No, how do we proceed with that?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yung 1.1 million, we don't have that data, but I agree. Dun sa printing facilities of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, the national ID, the physical card, before it leaves and to be delivered by post office, it goes to quality assurance checks. Quality assurance 1, quality assurance 2, parang 100% visual inspection. So in that process, Mr. Chair, talagang may nare-reject yun. Parang any production process, talagang may nare-reject. And then nire-replace naman po yun ng ating service provider. Yung 1.1 million, parang masyadong mataas kasi may mga rejection rate sila na very few. But that rejection rate is not at the cost of the government. Pag nireject doon sa facilities, nire-reprint lang uli yun. That's one. Second, yung digital, that is really the way to go. But right now, if you look at statistics, not all Filipinos na 15 and above will have the smartphone. Ang atin, meron tayong smartphone, one per household, but not sa individual. But that's the way to go as we move forward, digital talaga. And also there are areas wherein we don't have that much connectivity. Island barangays, island municipalities even. These are areas actually that we are doing some priority deliveries kasi kailangan nila yung physical card. So in the transition, the physical card, either the physical ID or the e-file ID are still needed, but moving forward, the digital ID is really the way to go. But right now po, Mr. Chair, talagang hindi pa lahat ng mga kababayan natin ay may smartphone. One per household, yun yung statistics natin.
Mr. Chair, just to add to the point of Senator Win Gatchalian, yung how about kung, halimbawa, sabi mo nga, walang cellphone lahat, karamihan, walang cellphone, walang connectivity. Just to find ways. Just to find ways. I-avail natin sila nung, ano yung sabi mo, yung papel na ipiprint nila. O kayo mga taga-bundok, punta kayo sa poblasyon, may signal doon. Magpa-print kayo ng papel. So to make things easy to Filipinos. Alam mo kasi, ganito, ah, mag-cite lang ako na example like LTO, yung problema na sa mga printing ng lisensya, paggawa ng mga plate number, pag hindi tayo satisfied nung services na binibigay ng mga contractor, ng mga supplier, gusto natin i-terminate, tapos kakasuhan pa tayo ng mga suppliers na yan. Alam mo, this is an easy way of getting rid of those people who are prying on the government money. Yung mga tao na yan, lalo na yung mga abusador ng mga supplier, abusador ng mga mga contractor sa gobyerno, kakasuhan pa na yung gobyerno. Sila na nga ang nagkamali, tapos tayo pang kakasuhan nila. Kaya ako lang, just to place all things in simple ba? Mas maganda siguro, ganun. But nandyan naman yan, nandyan na yung project na yan. How I wish lang, mapabilis doon sa lahat ng Pilipino. Simple things of doing things, making life easier for all of us. That's all, Mr. Chair. Salamat.
You. Go ahead,
Thank-
Seven. You have
thank you.
2 minutes.
Thank you. I understand, Dr. Mapa, the e-fill ID is supposed to be temporary. It's a stopgap measure because we cannot print the physical national ID. But I heard earlier you mentioned that we already printed 42 million of those e-fill ID, but that will be eventually replaced, correct?
Yes.
So when do we reach that 100%
Physical.
the national ID, physical national ID?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The past 2 weeks, we've been working with the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and their service provider, and they presented the service provider all cards printing, provided a catch-up plan, wherein they will clear all the 92 million by September of 2024. That's their target. But while the e-fill ID is as you said, it's a temporary. That is being used already. In fact, banks are already accepting e-fill ID for basic deposit accounts, and this was reported by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas that because of the PhilSys registration, they registered an additional 7.5 million individuals with basic deposit accounts. So tanggap na po yon yung e-fill ID. But of course, the commitment is that e-fill ID, eventually we will deliver the physical card.
Mapa, I think there's, from what I hear, there's a problem with the supplier. The supplier is not up to the timetable. Is that what's happening right now?
Because of the spike, Mr. Chair, of the registration, particularly in 2021, wherein we are reaching about 230, 250,000 registrants per day, that's 7 days a week. Yung ating card printing facilities kasi can only produce 80,000 per day. They're also working 7 days a week. 24-hour kami dyan sa Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. So yung adjustment is really to increase the capacity of the printer. So parang you have more volume in the registration, but the printer capacity was pegged at about 80,000. So that is the catch-up plan that we are actually talking with the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and All Cards Printer.
So when do we, in short, when do we finish that? When do we finish the 42 million e-fill ID? When do we finish replacing them?
Mr. Chair, based on their schedule as they presented to us, they will clear everything by September 2024.
September of 2024. Okay. So si Sani, September of 2024 mo pa makuha yung ID mo.
Hindi naman po lahat, kasi first in, first out, papahanap lang po namin yung ano.
Baka ano sa'yo, July.
E-fill ID pa, hindi pa yung regular ID.
And lastly, Mr. Chairman, thank you for that, Dr. Mapa, for the schedule. And lastly, you mentioned about banks, no? And I think I texted you this a few months ago that I've received personal experiences from friends and from constituents that our national ID is not being accepted by banks because it lacks signature. And it becomes inconvenient because the selling point during that time when we were debating on the law is you will only have one ID for everything. But right now the banks are not accepting it because the banks are requiring a picture of your signature. So I remember you answered back, no? But maybe it's good also to give the committee an update on that.
As always, no, there's a transition. Of course, yung banks, when we release this Phil ID and ePhil ID, we're looking for the signatures. 100 years of behavior na maghanap ka ng signature. But dalawa po ito, Mr. Chair, yung Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas issued a very strong memorandum circular that the bank should already accept the national ID and the Philippine Statistics Authority kasi mayroon po tayong QR code tayo. That is already a clear way if you scan the QR code that you get the information of that particular individual kung ano talaga siya, sino talaga siya. So we are actually discussing this and training the banks about the QR code. Kung titingnan natin naman po yung number ng mga reklamo ay pababa na po. Siguro nagkaroon lang talaga ng transition sa una, but the number of complaints right now is much less compared to, let's say, 6 months ago.
It's good to hear, Dr. Mapa. In fact, the banks that I was referring to who was not accepting the national IDs, our own land bank, our own GFIs, no? Our own GFI should be the one leading the way in terms of recognizing and accepting our national ID, but they're the ones violating or rejecting the use of the national ID. I hope that's rectified.
We had a discussion with them already, Mr. Chair. Actually, there's a memo from the chair of the land bank. But of course, sometimes specific branches may not be able to the teller, the communication gap. But we are pressing Land Bank of the Philippines, which is our partner. Doon sa collocation strategy natin, yung 7.5 million na nagkaroon ng basic deposit accounts, that is between the PSA and Land Bank collocation strategy. So Land Bank is on board on this particular initiative, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Much for some very good points. Wala na po was Senator Bato. Andito ba yung staff ni Senator Bato? Is he going to ask questions? If not, I think we can dispense with the NEDA. But just two short questions, Dr. Mapa. What is the birth rate of the Philippines right now? And I'll address this to the whole NEDA since you're very brilliant economists. When do we become what they call an aging? What is the definition of an aging population? And when do we hit that? I was told 2030 something. I don't know if that's still the case.
Yung ating total fertility rate po, yun yung measure natin ay yung last natin data 2020 bumaba na po siya sa 1.9. So that's 1.9 children per woman of 15 to 49 years old. So bumaba na po siya. This is below the replacement rate of about 2.1. May mga inaaral namin, kasama natin dito yung Commission on Population and Development, kasi nagkaroon po tayo ng COVID. So pwede na some of this can be explained by the COVID shocks. We will have another data from our civil registration service, yung mga vital statistics natin, para makita natin moving forward, yung downtrend ba niya ay talagang diretso na or mayroon pang konting paakyat. So that's a possible effect po ng COVID. But I will refer to Mr. Chair and the Secretary and the Executive Director of the Commission on Population Development.
What's happening now is that
Yung madaling intindihan lang, Sec, hindi yung pang PhD na.
what's happening now is Mr. Chair, is yung tinatawag nating working AIDS group is now growing faster, started to grow faster than the overall population. Which means that in our population, there are now more working class. Now, in the history of our neighbors, when that is happening, yun ang tinatawag nilang demographic dividend. Because that added additional growth to their GDP, usually in the order of 2% another 2 percentage points, no, or 2 to 3 percentage points, apart from the usual other sources of growth, no. So, and that can fuel the country's growth for several decades, 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades. So,
Yung question ko earlier na when will we be considered and what is the definition of an aging population? Is it when yung using your concepts, when do we hit that? Oh,
I guess when you have all this,
Yeah.
the above 60
are more than the
or
working
more,
population.
yeah,
Oh.
will now grow much
Yeah,
faster than
and
the
that's
usual,
yun yung
yeah.
dugtong nung tanong ko, Sec, is because when do we experience all these things being experienced by Japan, by France, all these things about pensions,
That will be a
etc.
long time because the median age now is just in the 20s, low 20s.
Okay.
So we can worry about that 3 decades, 4 decades from now
Okay.
when we are much richer.
But
if we are-
do we know the date? Anyway, you don't have to give it to me now, no? Baka i-ano na lang pagka after a little bit, I'll just ask for that. Just a one pager on that. Oh.
Sige,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, we can
Yeah.
ask the chair of the Commission on Population and
In writing na lang.
Development.
I don't want to prolong the in writing na lang. One page lang po. Para we can also not give you too much today. Vice Chair De La Rosa, sir, do you have any questions for NEDA? Yeah. You have 10 minutes if you do.
Wala nang 1 minute ito, Mr. Chairman. Anyway, yung nga lang, yung tungkol naman yung aking question ay natanong na ni Senator Win Gatchalian, yung about the ID system. Isang question na lang, sir. Yung next year, 2024, expected daw talaga natin magkakaroon tayo ng El Nino. Ay magiging kawawa dito, lalo-lalo na yung mga vegetable farmers natin. I hope meron kayong mga policy preparations pertaining to this na makatulong kayo sa agriculture at saka yung most especially yung mga kababayan natin na apektuhan nito. Better be prepared and we can be prepared with the right policies that you are going to formulate. At kung meron kayong gustong i-input sa amin dito sa Senado, input nyo sa amin para makaprepare tayo para hindi masyadong devastating yung magiging effect nito sa ating mga kababayang mga farmers. Yun lang sir ang aking sana mag-isip na kayo kung anong dapat nating paghanda para sa El Nino na coming. Thank you sir, thank you. Mr. Chairman, salamat.
Much for short but sweet intervention from Senator Bato. Any reaction, Sec. RC?
We are sure, Senator Bato, Mr. Chair, that the government as a whole is very much on top of this El Nino phenomenon, which will last until the first quarter of next year. Yeah. The positive thing is in the global economy, it's turning out that the production everywhere is better than expected a few months ago, and so it seems to appear that the El Nino may not be as bad as we initially assumed.
Senwin, anything else before we let go of NEDA?
Just a few more items, Mr. Chair, with your permission. I was looking at the infrastructure projects, the infrastructure flagship projects, and how many have we? How many IFPs do we currently have?
We have
Secretary.
197, Mr. Chair.
And how many of those are on time, and how many of those are slipping in terms of timetable?
Yeah, okay.
Do we have that presentation?
Yeah, we have actually the data on that, Mr. Chair, and we can provide you one because we present to the President and the Cabinet quarterly the progress of each of these for each of these 197 projects, so that we can flag the agency concerned and explain to the President for the delays, if any, on these projects.
Do we have a matrix of how many of those projects are on time? How many
We have,
projects?
Mr. Chair, we actually have a dashboard that,
Is
that
there-
allows you to.
Do we have it now? Just to give us a snapshot of
Is it
where we
possible
are.
to post it,
Yeah.
Sec RC? Can we post it on the? You have it? Do you have it? Or will it take time to ano? Maybe while the committee is talking to your people to post what Senwin requested. I think that's a very good
Yeah, we
question.
can, yeah.
Maybe you can give us a general, a bird's eye view, Sec, of
Alright.
how many are ongoing, under construction, how many are in the pending in the approval stage at NEDA, how many are for approval of the cabinet, etc. What are the different? How many different categories do you have there?
Yes,
And my question, Sec, is ilan dyan ang namana sa previous administration of the 197?
okay, our, of of these 197, Mr. Chair, we have 194 pa lang ito.
Baka
Ah,
percentage.
okay.
Wag na yung
Yeah.
ano.
About 40%, 40.5% of these are in terms of number, in terms of cost, are ongoing. And many of these, the large majority of these 68, of course, were carried over from the
68
previous
of 197.
68 of the
Yeah.
197.
Yeah, that's understandable, Sec, because these things take time.
Okay. The what has been approved for implementation is about 25 plus 3 because this is only 194. There's about we have 28 new numbers now approved for implementation. For government approval, we have 9 projects. These are being prepared for presentation to the NEDA board. Under project preparation, these are 52. These have been identified as critical projects for supporting the PDP, but they are in various stages of preparation. And the pre-project preparation is 40. These ones we are still going through pre-feasibility study and feasibility studies.
Are these all on time, Secretary? Are they
Some of
on
these
schedule?
are not. For example, for our 2023 reckoning, about seven of them are delayed.
7 out of the 68.
Yeah, yeah. 7 out of the of this year's
Yung subway program, di na matutuloy yun, di ba, Sec? Sa Makati, yung subway, because of the decision of the Supreme Court.
that's not yet
Oh.
even included yet.
That's not even in the
yeah,
197.
no.
Oh.
Because our practice is that once there is that's been approved and run. Actually, it's running. That's an LGU project.
Lang sa inyo.
These are
Hindi nyo pa
national projects.
Secretary, this 197 projects, how will Maharlika, the Maharlika Fund come into play? Are these projects going to be target projects of Maharlika?
Well, yeah,
Potential target projects for Maharlika?
Yeah, they Maharlika investors can opt to participate, can invest in.
Maharlika itself can participate.
Yes,
As additional, I would assume, as
Yeah.
additional capital
Yeah, they
for these
can.
projects.
These
These are infrastructure projects.
right.
Yeah.
And that's the decision of the board
Of
of
the
the
board.
management of Maharlika. Yeah.
But it's potential. It's a
It's
potential
potential, yeah,
target
yeah,
for
yeah.
them. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We'll just request, Mr. Secretary, that dashboard so we can track down the timetable and which projects are delayed, and will be a brief real time. I think this is a real time update.
These are updated monthly,
Alright.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
And you can see that in the NEDA website. Anyone can go there.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So thank you and congratulations to the NEDA. We're fully in support of, the committee is fully in support of your initiatives, and congratulations, Sec RC and your team, working very hard for us. Sen Legarde is coming in. Yeah. What are we supposed to do? Does she intend to ask questions? Maybe we can just ask Sec RC to pay her a courtesy call, di ba? After the meeting. Yeah?
We can do that, Mr. Chair.
Yeah? Okay? So, anong request niya? That they stay? Just have a private audience with the secretary so things can be aired out. Legarda. That has been prevailed upon, according to her staff, she prefers to just have a private audience with the Sec RC. So thank you, and we'll favorably recommend the budget of the NED and its attached agencies without prejudice to any possible augmentation that may happen. Thank you very much, Sec RC, Dr. Mapa, Yusek Rose,
Thank
and
you very
others.
much.
And thank you to Senator Legarda. There's Senator Legarda, the woman herself, about just in time. Maybe we give her a few minutes to say what she needs to. Yes, we were about to adjourn, suspend, Your Honor. Yes. Yes, yes. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Your staff asked us to wait. Thank you very much, Vice Chair Bato and Vice Chair Win, for your very good interventions. Thank you, Your Honors. Yeah. The temptation to speak is sometimes very hard to resist. Go ahead, Zed.
No, I actually, when I was in the elevator when they said that you were about to adjourn because everybody had finished their questions, I just wanted, of course, to be physically present because I was monitoring for the NEDA hearing, Mr. Chair, and thank you to my colleagues. Just a few minutes because you are going to suspend or to adjourn for session already.
Our custom is to suspend so we don't need a
Yes.
quorum for the next meetings. But we already said we'll favorably recommend their. Yeah, so you're free to make.
the issues
They will
are done.
appreciate any increases you make to.
Oh, yes. No, in
budget.
fact, there were two things which I'm sure Senator Gatchalian and the chair and Senator Bato will appreciate. First, the Innovation Act, which was an important measure that the good gentleman had kindly sponsored. I filed that as an output of the APEC meetings. When was APEC? 2015, was it? 2015. It's a very good piece of legislation. May we know NEDA and DTI, another agency very close to your heart, are the implementing agencies. We want to see perhaps a greater mainstreaming of the Innovation Act in all agencies of government. Is there any funding for the Innovation Council and for the mainstreaming of innovation in DTI, in even agriculture, in education? Yeah, Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, unfortunately, we don't have yet the budget that is indicated in the law, or the fund that is indicated in the law, and it's being studied by legal and because there are also by BSP, they are there because there are certain issues about the cost of doing business and so on. But Mr. Chair, just to ensure that yeah. Yes, but we do have funds for the secretariat, at least for the secretariat work, and which enables us to work with other government agencies. In fact, Mr. Chair, this week we are launching the National Innovation Agenda and Strategic Document for 2023 to 2032. no less than the President. Madam Chair, we invited you, we invited, it's Jan. You're getting, yeah, 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 because you are the authors of the, yeah. So, but this is on Wednesday at the Metropolitan Theater. Yeah, the President will be there. I hope you will join us. Yeah. Yeah.
Secretary, the utilization of this very important law, because although it's new and then it was caught by the 3-year pandemic, so we wanted to see how each agency perhaps is utilizing this Innovation Act in their respective fields, whether it's in education or agriculture, or even in transport communications. We can talk about that perhaps outside of the budget hearing, but we would like to know whether you needed support for the implementation of the law, at least for the Secretariat. But I am told that there is a NEP provision for the Secretariat of the Council. Yes.
Madam, we definitely welcome any support. The various agencies have come up with a document toward that will be useful for the mainstreaming of innovation, and not just in government, but of course with the private sector as well,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Thank you for that. The second and my last query for this hearing would be the natural resource accounting, which NEDA has been doing for several years, which is not yet institutionalized by legislation. That's a reason why we filed the bill. May and agriculture into natural resource accounting so that they also understand. Yeah, these are not very easy measures.
Once we get the law, the implementation of that law would be, well, the secretariat of that, we assume will be our National Policy and Planning Group, so that the entire PENCAS will be mainstream within government. The Undersecretary is Rose Dilian.
Kayo po ang nagsimula.
Yes, she's the best person to implement that because she,
The PENCAS expert, is it Yusek Edilion?
well, she is a statistician and economist by training, so she would be the best person around to implement it. Well, yeah.
You have a bureau under you handling PENCAS? Sige.
We have
Okay.
the UNRES will basically the main body, our agriculture and natural resources. Group.
Kindly look at your budget, whether looking forward, because if it's enacted into law this year and then the whole year of next year, wala kayong PENCAS provision, sayang naman, we'll have to wait for 2025. So let's just assume it will be enacted into law by the end of the year or first quarter next year. I pray and hope, because it's in the LEDAC priority. So let's put support, funding, capacity building, IEC, so that not just NEDA, but other agencies will understand and implement both innovation and PENCAS, because I think that's the way forward for us to utilize our resources sustainably. Having said that, Mr. Chair, thank you for this opportunity to ask these queries of NEDA. Of course, I support your budget and even would like to enhance it if needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our Senior Vice Chair and our Senate President Pro Tem for very important interventions. And again, we reiterate, just remind you for all the submissions asked for by our colleagues. And thank you again. Congratulations for the good work. And we're in support of your work, SecRC and colleagues. Salamat, salamat po. Have a great day. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator.